the rematch of Barty Crouch and Barty Crouch Jr. Yeah, I figured I'd acknowledge that weird coincidence of those two actors from Harry Potter facing off again in this. Hey, Overdue Doctor Who review. We are up to the first two-parter of Series 2. That brings us to Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. So, I am probably gonna go off on a bit of a tangent about the Cybermen specifically, so let's hold off on that. We'll come back to it. The first thing is you need to be prepared for the campier aspects of Doctor Who to kind of really come to the forefront in this one. I mean, to be fair, the episode does clue you into that basically right off the bat with Lumic saying right before he has a proto-Cyberman kill his assistant, I guess. Yeah, when his assistant says, "Oh, well, we have to alert, the Geneva Convention or whatever," and then Lumic goes, "And how will you do that? From beyond the grave." Like, especially coming off the heels of some of the really, great performances in something like Girl in the Fireplace or School Reunion. God, you compare Anthony Stewart Head's very restrained but very menacing performance to this. Wow. This is pretty campy as far as modern era Doctor Who goes. So if that's not your bag, that's going to be a big problem. I've gotten better about rolling with it for the most part. It's still not my preferred sort of angle for Doctor Who to come at things, but I can roll with it. So we've got the whole parallel universe thing, which honestly I would have annoyed me, except that I really like how it's handled within this episode and then how the series as a whole has handled it. Because normally the introduction of something like parallel worlds would really make me very worried about future storylines, because it's such a rabbit hole of retcons and bringing back old characters and bringing back alternate versions of dead characters. It's the kind of thing that enables a show with not the proper restraint to become very masturbatory. And instead of giving us new stuff, instead giving us all these alternate versions of stuff we already had. I'm like, but I want new stuff. It's a big universe. Show me more of that, not a whole other one. So thankfully the show never really did that. And I think a lot of that comes down to how it is approached here, which is that it's made very clear that they should not have been able to get here. It was a fluke. The fact that they are here, the very nature of this universe may mean they can't get back. And once they leave, they shouldn't be able to come back. Now, obviously we know there are a couple of more stories that come up and use this parallel world thing, but they never lose sight of the fact that this should not be happening. It's never easy, which is good because then it never takes over the story, which is especially good considering that the show's already dabbling in time travel, which is another thing that can be a big rabbit hole for these kinds of shows to fall down. Thankfully, it's a central part of Doctor Who's premise, so it already handles that pretty well. I actually think Tennant is a little bit of a backbencher in this episode. Not that he's bad, he's fine, and he's got some nice little moments as it goes along, but I think it's because there's so much that has to happen. We have to establish this entire parallel world, how it works, the players in it, the characters. Rose has got her whole thing with Pete. And then there's Mickey, and actually, I think for me, Mickey is the highlight of this two-parter. I really, really enjoy him in this. I mentioned in the last one, when I did The Girl in the Fireplace, that I kind of wish Mickey had stuck around a bit more, and I really like this dynamic. He not only is he becoming a better and better and more enjoyable character as he goes along, there's also a sort of a little bit of sadness in the fact that he knows if any situation requires the Doctor to choose between him and Rose, the Doctor's always going to pick Rose. And Mickey knows that. And that does give a nice kind of layer to things. especially with his awareness of it. And so I like that quite a bit. And actually, he's got a moment where he goes to visit the parallel universe equivalent of his grandmother. And I also mentioned this last week. If you can hit me the right way, I choke up with not a lot of effort, and I did choke up when he goes to see her because his grandmother in his universe, she died because she fell down the stairs. She tripped going down the stairs. And he looks past the doorway, past her, and he sees the carpet up a little bit on the stairs, and he says how I told you got to get that fixed, and he's choking up saying that, and like I felt the lump, and I'm like, oh God, Mickey. And so I really like that. It's down to performance. Noel Clarke gives a wonderful performance, and he has been giving so many layers to this character as he goes along. I'd say he does the same with Ricky, except Ricky is kind of one note. I think by design, though, because Ricky's gonna die, so we're left with the better version. So that works okay. The Rose's whole thing with Pete. Well, first of all, I like having Pete back because I like Pete. He's a good actor. He's likable. He's really good at sort of writing that line of being like, you're a little bit of a weasel, but I kind of like you. And I like how the dynamic is just different enough from what went on in Father's Day that it doesn't feel completely repetitive and redundant. Because it's not a, you can't see him because it screws up history. It's a, you can't see him because he doesn't know you. You have no place in this universe. This is not your Pete. You are not his Rose. He doesn't even have a Rose. I mean, the dog, but you know what I mean? So it's just enough of a shift in that dynamic that I don't mind kind of revisiting some of that stuff. Also, probably part of the reason I don't mind revisiting it is that element of Father's Day was very good in an episode that I otherwise actually don't really like. So maybe that's part of why I don't mind having it come back, because it was the best part in an episode that I don't like anyway. So all of that is working really well, and there's a lot of interesting details. Supporting cast is solid. I like Mrs. Moore. I mean, I always kind of like the feisty, possibly dangerous older woman. I've always enjoyed that. I love her, like, this is the slowest getaway in history, and like she's got this homemade EMP bar. I'm like, it's nice. It's a shame she dies, but it's good. I like her a lot. But okay, yeah, it's time for me to deal with the elephant in the room, which is the Cybermen themselves. Now, when I first watched this, back in the day, I just didn't think too much of the Cybermen one way or the other. I thought, okay, they're a little like the Daleks, gimmick slightly different, but they felt very similar. They had a one-word catchphrase that they would say before they kill someone. Instead of exterminate, we get delete. And so it felt very much cut from the same cloth. But now, going back and rewatching it now and having a much better understanding of what the Cybermen are, or more importantly what they can be when used correctly, I really don't like these Cybermen. I feel like they miss this iteration of them misses a handful of really key components, because the Cybermen aren't just scary, they're tragic. And the tragedy of a society whose members, possibly reluctantly, but ultimately voluntarily, become what the Cybermen are simply because they value survival, staying alive above all else, including their own humanity, that lends an air of tragedy to it. And I think that is lost when they are the creation of one madman who just programmed them to go out and convert other people. So instead of being something that the Cybermen do because with their emotions gone, because it's the only way they can function, because otherwise everything hurts too much, that with their emotions gone, they don't see the problem in converting other people to be like them. They lack the empathy to understand or care. Whereas these Cybermen, these Cybermen feel way more like robots than the Monda Cybermen do. And also, I want to be clear, like, I'm not saying every single instance of classic era Cybermen were perfect. They weren't all, and sometimes that wasn't great either. But Cybermen at their best are not robots, like very distinctly not. But these feel a lot more like robots than the Cybermen should, I feel. And because what this ultimately feels like is this, rather than a human kept alive through artificial means way past the point where they should have died, it is a distinctly different beast from a robot with a human brain for a CPU. Because ultimately that's what these Cybermen are. I will say that, like, my distaste for this particular iteration of the Cybermen is alleviated somewhat by the fact that this is all in a parallel universe. So creating this different version of the Cybermen, or the Cybusmen, if you will, does not in any way negate, erase, retcon the original Mondas version. Even though we were stuck with this version of the Cybermen for a while in New Who, I do like that in introducing this alternate take, it in no way erased the old version, which I'm really appreciative of, especially now as I've gotten to know, again, how good classic Cybermen can be with things like Tombs of the Cybermen, with spare parts, with World Enough in Time. So having all that background now, the Cybermen as New Who depicts them at this point go from being fine, a little generic, to actively irritating me because I know how much better they can be and have been in other iterations. So, and then there's, just the random little things, like I don't like how loud their stompy boots are. Like, again, I get that they're going for like a scary militaristic stomping kind of thing, but I don't love it. And can we mention the fact that the title for the first part of this being Rise of the Cybermen, that was really dumb, because if you look at the episode, the way that it's structured seems to be around the idea of, we're going to hint that these are going to be the Cybermen. We'll have a silhouette. We'll have, when Jackie Tyler gets taken over for a bit by Luma, the thing comes out her ear pods and it connects, and it's that Cyberman shape. And so it feels very much like the episode is put together in a way that was intended for classic era Doctor Who fans to catch it, but then the real reveal comes later. Except you put Cybermen in the title! Why would you do that? Also, and there's the completely weird moment that, like, I guess they're trying to go for just weird juxtaposition with homeless people getting chopped up and put into Cybermen bodies to the tune of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. I don't know. It's not the first, and it won't be the last time that Doctor Who gets weird with music uses. I mean, it immediately made me kind of flash forward to the Master taking over the world to Voodoo Child. I'm like, why? And it's also funny to come back, because I remember people mentioning, I think it was especially with Rosa, or mentioning in general Series 11, even with the trailers, people were like, oh, the pop music. And I'm going back and watching these and thinking, that ain't new. I'm not saying it gets a pass because of that, because I don't like it here. But, like, that's not a new thing. Show's been doing it for a while. So I think I'll wrap up on that note. I think I hit everything I wanted to. Hope so. So, Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Whole bunch of stuff that you can do, because there's buttons and links. There's one to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. Whole bunch of links besides, P.O. Box, etc. It's all down in the description. Check it out if you want to, and if you don't, you know what? That's okay. Because at the end of the day, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.